I thank you for joining us today as we kick off our very first learning session of 2025. I'm thrilled, just thrilled to introduce our speaker, Kris Erickson. She's a co-founder, executive consultant at WSA. Kris has over 30 years of consulting experience with Fortune 500 companies, and where she's worked at both the strategic and tactical levels to develop and deploy comprehensive workforce solutions. Throughout her career, Kris has empowered organizations to discover the unique drivers and motivational aspects that predict performance. So please join me in welcoming Kris Erickson as she shares her expertise with us today. Take it away, Kris.
Thank you, Lisa. And thank you all for joining today. And truly welcome to the first in a two-part series focused on the 2025 State of the Workforce Research that is powered by WSA data. So today, I will reveal what is most important for leaders and HR practitioners to focus on to not only drive employee engagement, but in turn, create more fulfilling employee experiences. And we'll also examine the continued critical role that all levels of leadership play in bringing these experiences to life. And so in this short 30-minute session, we will discuss the current workforce landscape. We'll introduce our revised high-performance model. And we'll also talk about and showcase the latest findings from WSA data to answer questions that we get asked a lot. What is happening with employee engagement, both at a macro level as well as the micro level, with diving into some specific demographic cuts, such as level within the organization, generation, et cetera. And we'll also take a look at the role that leaders have in crafting work environments in which employees move from merely surviving to thriving. And then finally, we'll end with the strategic imperatives that every senior leader and HR professional should focus on to ensure organizational success. So let's begin with examining what is happening in the current economic climate. The landscape has introduced some new tensions we discovered into the employer-employee relationship. Inflation pressures, market volatility, and shifting labor market conditions have created a complex backdrop against which engagement must be understood. And due to these fluctuations, workers are increasingly seeking stability, security, all the while simultaneously demanding flexibility and competitive compensation. And these are creating some new challenges for organizations striving to retain top talent and maintain high levels of engagement. Couple that with, over the last couple of years, there's been large and most prominent layoffs with some of the biggest brands in the business. That's also led to employee uneasiness and perceived instability in the job market. So what we can say now is employees may be feeling an increased general sense of insecurity. So with this current landscape, how do organizations and leaders successfully navigate these uncertainties to consistently deliver on critical outcome metrics such as sales, profitability, and brand loyalty? Out of our refreshed data, we were able to revise our high performance framework. And basically, we've taken all of the data that we've collected over the past 3 years, and we learned three critical points from that data. One, it's all about leadership. And leaders are, their remit to the organization now is how can they support every employee to enable them to give their best work. We know that engagement is just the critical metric when it comes to understanding employees, but we also have to understand, are we equipping our employees in order to do their best work? And when those three areas are firing on all cylinders, we start to see things like increased productivity, higher quality, better service, higher employee retention. And when that happens, you start to see those important business outcomes. And I just want to give you a great example of that. A couple of weeks ago, I was flying home and I had a really tight connection in Atlanta, and I was flying Delta Airlines, and we were delayed taking off out of Colombia, and I kept looking at my watch, and it kept getting closer and closer to the point that I thought, I'm going to miss my flight, my connecting flight. And the flight attendant near the end of the flight came up to me and said, "You're really nervous about missing your connection, aren't you?" And that stopped me in the moment, because think about what that experience was like. He was able to connect with my emotion. And then he said, by the way, you're going to be just fine. And so it really did kind of put me at ease. And I thought he didn't have to do that and he didn't have to notice it. I get off the plane, I start running to my gate. And as I approach the gate, two counter agents were sitting at that gate and they said, Kris Erickson. And I said, yes, how did you know that? And they said, your flight attendant called from the plane to say that you were on your way and that we shouldn't close the door. When you think about that, that flight attendant had a manager or a leader who supported them in saying, you're empowered to make decisions. That flight attendant was definitely engaged in picking up on my emotion. Then he operationalized it by making a phone call to that particular gate. Well, that was a fabulous experience for me. But what it also did is you look at business outcomes, it built the brand of Delta even stronger in my mind. And if I ever have, the next time I fly, I'm flying on Delta Airlines. And so when we do really think about studying high performing organizations, we just know that leadership at all levels are the linchpin. First, they must foster a work environment in which employees can thrive, delivering their best work like that flight attendant in order to delight their customers. In order to create such an environment, key data and insights as to what levers to pull is imperative. However, what we've learned, and I'm sure you're experiencing, is that today's leaders are faced with a deluge of information about their businesses, their employees, their customers. And with so much data readily available, the task of sifting through the interesting information to get to the important insights can feel daunting, I think, to say the least. And much of this data is historical in nature, meaning leaders are looking in the rearview mirror when making critical decisions for the business. So at WSA, we took a different approach this year. We are dedicated to transforming this narrative. Our mission is to equip leaders with predictive insights that identify the critical levers for enhancing business performance, leveraging their workforces as an essential resource to help them look ahead, like through the proverbial windshield. So think about our high performance framework as a roadmap, and that the insights we're going to share today from WSA data is going to create the playbook for you moving forward. So just as a reminder, all the insights we will discuss today came from an extensive and exhaustive review of WSA's normative database. And as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, this is just a compilation of the kinds of information and data we collected. And as a reminder, at the end of every year, we refresh this 3-year rolling database. And so the findings that you will see today are based upon the time span of 2022 through 2024. And finally, for the purposes of our conversation today, we've intentionally focused on data from the United States and Canada. We did that in order to control for country, regional, and cultural differences that we just know exist in employee data. So with that context in mind, let's take a look at engagement trends over the last several years. From that kind of 32,000 foot view, year over year engagement trends have remained pretty stable since 2021. But we took it one step further and we wanted to start looking at first half of years and second half of years. And so that's what you see on your screen. H1 is January through May, and then June through December for H2. And so as you look at the latest data, at 71% favorable, the first half of 2024 mirrors that of the second half of 2021. That is when engagement has appeared at its lowest. But as you move through the end of 2024, we did see a rise of 2 points on engagement. And then looking at manager effectiveness, you can just see that from the second half of 2021, manager effectiveness has remained really, really strong. So what does that mean? It means that the relationship that the employee has with the person they directly report to has been and remains incredibly important to the overall employee experience. And so why do we think some of these fluctuations have occurred? Well, if we think back to what was going on in the economy, we were talking about layoffs, inflation, market volatility. Those macro and micro factors were weighing on the minds of employees at the end of 23 and into the first half of 24. And as you can see on the screen, we've dissected the 4 items that comprise the engagement index with satisfaction, advocacy, intent to stay, and pride. As you think about the second half of 24, some of those pressures that we talked about began to abate. And not coincidentally, advocacy and pride out of this index saw the most significant increases, which in turn caused engagement to increase those 2 percentage points. Think about it in this way. Think about uncertainty at the end versus certainty moving into 2025. So employees were feeling more of a connection to their organizations. Now, as we fast forward to today, sitting at the end of March, we have reintroduced some of these higher levels of uncertainty. And so just rest assured, we will be monitoring what's going on in the first half of 25 and in the second half of 25. So if that's kind of the overall state of engagement going back to 21, one of the things that we always do is to say, if this is the state of engagement, the state of manager effectiveness, what's going to drive that score to go up, remain constant, or go down? And so we have historically in the past looked at what were those factors, and we've used research that was really focused on more of a Pearson correlation analysis. Well, this year with the the onset of AI and NLP, we really did a lot of additional in-depth research. And so what we can say now through this refined methodology, we've moved beyond the Pearson correlation, which just helps us to know what items have the strongest relationship to engagement, to actually predicting what's most important in driving engagement. And what you see on the screen are the 6 core tenets that bubbled up to the top out of the refresh of that massive database. And for those of you who've been with us as clients for a long time, a lot of this has just not changed. It's the way that we're analyzing the data that you'll see here in a moment that's changed. But as a review, we just know that trust in leadership and strategic alignment, that sits squarely on the shoulders of the most senior leaders in the organization. They're responsible for talking about where are we headed, why is it important, what does it mean to you, the employee? And when you do that as senior leaders, you garner that confidence on the part of your workforce. When you think about communication and feeling valued, that's the purview of anyone who leads a team of people. They truly become the mouthpiece for senior leaders, but they're also the mouthpiece for employees and giving senior leaders information about what's resonating in the workforce and what's not. And obviously, this is the group of individuals who are responsible for making sure that their teams feel important to the organization. And then with feeling supported and growth and development, that really hits every single employee in the organization, from the CEO all the way down to the front line. And what we're learning is that people want to know that they're a part of something bigger than themselves, that they are supported in uncertain times. And given the opportunity, they want to be able to learn, grow, get better at what they do. And so we're really going to focus for the next few minutes on trust in leadership and strategic alignment, because out of our research, what we learned through this predictive analysis is that it all starts with senior leadership. Top organizational leaders must pay attention to the variables that help them create a sense that we, as in the organization, will be successful in the future. And that's that I believe this company has an outstanding future, and that they're confident this is the team to lead the path forward. So it's that trust the senior leadership of this company. To put it quite simply, strategic alignment and leadership trust are foundational predictors of engagement. And what our exhaustive research taught us this year is that these 2 items are outcome measures of leadership, meaning when leaders depict a future for the organization that resonates with employees, confidence in their ability to lead the company increases significantly. And that helps create a work environment in which employees are much more committed to giving their best work. So if outstanding future is the outcome of strategic alignment, what are the levers? What are the items? What are the actions that we can deploy to ensure that strategic alignment is solidified in the organization? So historically, our research has shown this tenet to be foundational to driving employees' levels of motivation, commitment, and conscientiousness. For employees to believe their company has an outstanding future, number 1, they need to be motivated by the North Star. Number two, they need to see how their work brings this vision to life and be in alignment with the values of the organization. But additionally, now in strategic alignment, employees also want to know that in an ever-changing landscape, their leadership are nimble in knowing what levers to push to keep the company on the right path. These items will predict whether or not employees believe the organization has a bright future. Our findings in strategic alignment, by the way, are in alignment with Blunt and Lemond of 2019. Their research revealed that there was a growing desire among workers to be part of companies that stood for something more than just profit. They wanted to contribute to a cause. They wanted to feel that their work had a broader impact on society. So we were thrilled to see that our latest refreshed research is definitely in alignment with outside thought leadership. So, through our research, we found some powerful insights on the importance of strategic alignment for today's workforce. And we took a different tack this year. We calculated odds ratios for engagement based upon the following scale. So for the purposes of the next few slides, when we talk about an engaged workforce, we are looking at the 4s and 5s on that Likert scale, the agrees and the strongly agrees. When we talk about disengaged employees, it's the 1s, 2s, and 3s, or the strongly disagree, the disagree, and the neutral. And so we wanted to see how do those odd ratios look when people either believe in the strategic alignment or conversely, if they're feeling disenfranchised by that strategic alignment. And the results to us were rather startling. First and foremost, employees who believe their company has an outstanding future are 25 times more likely to be engaged. Conversely, if they don't have that confidence, they're staggering 75 times more likely to be disengaged. Company values play a role in this as well, and there is a cost when employees do not believe in those values. Employees don't align with the company's values are 37 times more likely to be disengaged. And so while the importance of inspiring leadership has always been known, this new research emphasizes its power when it comes to driving engagement and strategic alignment. 92% of employees who feel motivated by their leadership's vision report being fully engaged, emphasizing how effective communication of a future vision drives commitment. Furthermore, employees who struggle to see a link between their work and the company's vision are an alarming 44 times more likely to be disengaged. So the importance of strategic alignment, I don't think, can be overstated. However, we also know that as strategic alignment goes, so does trust in leadership. And our latest research would indicate this is more relevant than ever. So what are the items, the actions, the behaviors that have the greatest influence on the outcome measure of trust in leadership? In order for employees to have confidence in their leadership, those that lead teams must A, walk the talk. They need to be the models of what they expect of their workforces, and not only provide up-to-date information, but also communicate the why behind their decisions. So these are the items on the screen that we need to act upon in order to foster trust. And just as with strategic alignment, when we look at outside research, this is definitely in line with the Mayer Davis Shorman research of 1995. What they basically uncovered is that there are 3 components to leadership trust. It's competence, ability to do the job. It's benevolence. Do we care about our people? And then integrity, right? The ethics piece. And so this model is consistent with our research findings when analyzing the predictors of leadership trust. So again, just as with strategic alignment, what are some of those odds measures or those outcomes of leadership trust? Employees are 56 times more likely to be disengaged if they doubt senior leaders' decisions compared to their trusting counterparts. Moreover, an impressive 9 out of 10, 91% of employees who believe that senior leadership values employees are fully engaged. However, a striking 71% of disengaged employees don't believe that senior leadership demonstrates that they are important to the overall company success. And lastly, for employees who don't believe their leadership effectively communicates reasons for changes, the risk of disengagement rises significantly. They're 23 times more likely to be disengaged. So I think that we all can agree that strategic alignment, leadership trust, those are the foundational aspects of a positive or a negative employee experience. And so what impact do strategic alignment and leadership trust have on employees? Well, quite simply put, when employees are bought into the company's vision and have confidence in their leadership to achieve this North Star, they want to understand what the future means for them. And so the number one predictor of engagement out of our refreshed database is the item you see on the screen. I believe my career goals can be met at this company. It's the most statistically powerful predictor of engagement, and it relates to the perception that employees can achieve their career goals here. And when you think about it, that variable, that item fits seamlessly within the strategic alignment conversations. Employees' belief that their career goals can be met at the company further adds to their confidence in the future. While personal growth is a key factor, it is closely linked to leadership's communication of the vision and employees' perceptions of how their work ties into the company's broader goals. What this also suggests is that employees who feel that their ambitions align with the company's goals are more likely to view the company's future as bright. And when individuals can visualize their personal success within the framework of the company's long-term vision, it strengthens their belief in the company's ongoing success. In fact, our research reveals that employees who feel that their career goals can be met at their company are 18 times more likely to be engaged than those who do not. By contrast, employees who lack confidence in meeting their career goals are 62 times more likely to be disengaged, revealing the toll of those unmet aspirations. So from a macro level, simply put, it's never been more important for leadership to take the mantle. They should be communicating not only what the North Star is for their organization, but why and how every employee plays a role in bringing this vision to life. When they do, they are rewarded with a much higher level of trust, creating an environment in which employees see themselves as an integral part of the organization's success. So that's the overall macro landscape of engagement and what is predicting engagement. Let's shift our focus and take a deeper dive into engagement by demographics at the micro level, specifically starting with management level and then moving on to gender and generations. As we examined engagement levels within the organization, there were fluctuations for the group, but not really statistically significant, as you can see. It's kind of remained steady at all four levels that we measure. However, the gap between senior leaders and individual contributors is continuing to widen, having gone from 14.7 points in 2021 to 18.2 points in 2024. That trend poses the risk that senior leaders can become to be perceived as more out of touch with the frontline employees. And that's a costly risk based on the predictors of engagement described previously. As well, when you begin to look at those mid-level leaders compared to senior leaders, there's a 10-point gap in overall engagement in 2024. Those mid-level managers are a really important ingredient in terms of pushing out strategic alignment, having confidence in leadership. And so we're going to keenly continue to watch where if that gap continues to occur. So now, in dissecting this even further through the intersection of management level and gender, we see that individual contributor engagement remains stable for both males and females. Engagement is actually inching up for both male and female senior leaders, while male senior leaders remain slightly more engaged than their female counterparts. There's also a noticeable gap in engagement between senior leaders and mid-level managers. While some discrepancy is expected, the 11-point difference for males and the 8-point difference for females is noteworthy. And again, as you think about those mid-level leaders, they are the translators and the mouthpieces. Translators for senior leadership, mouthpieces back up from the levels of the employees. So we are seeing some notable differences. Next, let's look at generations. And in our WSA database, we define generations in the following way. Baby boomers are from 46 to 64. Gen X is 65 to 1980. Millennials are 81 to 96. And Gen Z is 97 through 2012. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you can see the proportions of those generations represented in our database. So an analysis of the engagement trends by generation. It's a topic that we are asked a lot by our clients, and it does reveal some interesting results. Annual fluctuations within each generation are not statistically significant. However, meaningful differences emerge across the generations. Boomers are the most engaged generation, with the most notable difference emerging in the intent to stay item. And basically with that item, it is a really strong score for that particular generation. And it's not surprising, as members of this generation are likely to be highly committed to their place of employment as they near retirement. Gen X is the next most engaged generation. While there is a slight difference in engagement between millennials and Gen Z, those differences really aren't statistically significant. But as such, what we learned is that the newest generations within the workforce share a similar sentiment when it comes to the connection they feel to their organization. It's just not as strong as that felt by the generations that came before them. So it's just really important to kind of keep that in mind as you're managing and leading different generations. And again, we did go look at external research. And again, an empirical study in 2021 really talked about two attributes: age and career stage. And this group of researchers basically said those two attributes can sometimes masquerade as generational differences. Indeed, baby boomers are simply at a different stage in their careers than millennials and Gen Z. But regardless, what remains important is that managers and leaders understand those they lead so they can individualize their approach based on the unique needs of the individual. So we've discussed the current workforce landscape. We've showed you the revised high performance roadmap, and we've given you some micro level demographic cuts as it relates to engagement. And so I think we can all say the evidence is clear. In order to help leaders look through that proverbial windshield, they must proactively take the mantle on strategic alignment to garner the trust of their employees. If they do, they are rewarded with employees who feel a key part of the organization's success, and they want to contribute to the long-term realization of that North Star. And I think what we've also learned is that failure to do so can have some really negative impacts on organizational success. And finally, we've identified 3 strategic imperatives out of this refreshed database and our exhaustive research. 1, bridge leadership disconnects. How can we in organizations implement structured two-way communication channels between senior leaders and frontline employees? And those mid-level managers and managers play a crucial role in that particular equation. Number 2, strengthen career development. Find ways that people can continue to learn, grow, specifically as you look at the younger generations. And then lastly, the importance of strategic alignment. Connect individuals' contributions, their work, to the organizational vision. And so please feel free to go to workforcescience.com and download the entire 2025 State of the Workforce paper. And I do also want to take a moment to introduce and intro our next learning session, which is on April 16th from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Central Time. And it is the State of the Workforce Trends Part 2, a deep dive into retention and remote, hybrid, and on-site work arrangements. And we are lucky enough to have James Longabaugh, who is our Director of Consulting, lead that particular session. What James is going to do is look at manager effectiveness trends. He's going to uncover what is most indicative of highly rated managers. He's also going to dive into what is impacting intent to stay and an overview of generational differences of who is more likely to leave. He'll also explore remote and hybrid work arrangement trends, looking at engagement and manager effectiveness differences, as well as differences compared to on-site workers. And lastly, he'll highlight the major takeaways and recommendations stemming from our most recent research. The registration for James's webinar will be open in the next 24 hours. So I again want to thank you for taking the time to take a deeper dive into our refreshed database and our extensive research. And I think what I'd like to leave you with is we're really excited. We really feel that now we can give leaders at all levels predictive insights in real time in order to make more of those forward-looking decisions, not only to improve the employee experience, but also to impact key business outcomes. Thank you for your time.